Welcome to the Seeing Red podcast with Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce, checking up on Texas policies and politics with some federal issues thrown in, like the assault weapons ban, interest rate hikes, you get it, but it's mostly Texas, since we can't ignore the big stuff either. And now, here are your hosts, Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's very special edition of Seeing Red. Happy Thanksgiving to one and all. We want to hear from you. We always love getting mail and comments on Facebook.com/The Seeing Red Pod, YouTube.com/Seeing Red Pod, and you can find us on Twitter. We're pretty active on Twitter at The Seeing Red Pod. Want to thank my co-host Garrett for doing the editing every week. God bless your soul. And Zipmeister for getting out the social media. Also, if you guys want to just email us, just go to your email, open up a new email, and hosts, HOSTS, at seeingredpodcast.com. Hosts at seeingredpodcast.com. And tell us what you want to hear. Tell us where you disagree. Tell us where you agree. And on that note, since it is Thanksgiving week, Garrett, I know that you have, well, two things to be extra thankful for this year. Your lovely wife and that adorable baby. So who is doing well? I'm getting pictures, guys, and I keep telling Garrett, send more pictures, because I'm enjoying watching his progress and listening to what's going on and stuff like that. But what else is on your list? Anything else?
Those are the big ones. I mean, when you have your first kid and get married all in the same year, like that pretty much fills up all of it. Number 3, probably the Texas Rangers winning the World Series.
That'll do it. Yeah.
I am very thankful for the team I cheered for growing up. I mean, literally, it was the team I saved my allowance for 2.5 years so I could watch local broadcast games when I was a kid. So it was good to finally get that first World Series as a fan. So I'm appreciative for that. You already took the wind out of my sails with, very thankful for my wife and her putting up with me and loving me, and for my son's continued improving health. So looking forward to, very thankful for 2023, and looking forward to I'm not sure how 2024 could top 2023, but maybe it can.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Absolutely. My kids are all doing well, so I'm very, very happy about that. And I literally just got off the phone with my daughter, who's still in college in another state. Try as I might, so she seems to be doing well, and we are having, as any parent of a teen to 23-year-old will tell you, these are difficult. They can be difficult years, but she seems to be pulling it together, and she's making me proud, man. And my both of my boys are loving their jobs, and as a matter of fact, we'll see one of the kids for Christmas. Of course, they're all welcome, but it's not cheap or easy to fly down here. So of course, I'm thankful for my husband, who puts up with me and encourages me and gives me advice, and I'm lucky. He's my best friend, and I'm in love with him. It's just a very cool thing. And we, on December 5th, will be celebrating our 3rd wedding anniversary. So, we won't be whatever day that is, we won't be taping. But I am very thankful to be welcomed in Texas the way I am. And we've been here for 4 years, so we're pretty well settled in and understand the culture, and we love it. And Peter lived here before, and I've lived in the country most of my life, so I'm just happy to be. So
a lot to be thankful for. What some people in this state are thankful for, but others are very much not, was the fate of education savings accounts in the Texas House this past week. like we mentioned in the last week's episode, they had an HB1 set to go, which was the education quote-unquote omnibus, which was where they threw all the education reforms into one big bill. And that was set, that passed committee. It was the first time in the history of the state, apparently, that like education savings accounts were on the floor of the House.
Yeah.
And it got there, it passed the committee 10-4, and then it got into the House, and there were dozens of amendments, and one of the amendments was one that was going to rip all the education savings account language out of the bill, and that passed with the support of 21 Republicans, most of which are rural and or retiring. And then there were a couple suburban folks who were against it for other reasons, or for whatever reason, but were against school choice. So it failed pretty spectacularly, and then it's technically been sent back to committee. But there was a quote out there where someone said is whenever the bill kind of dies like that on the floor without getting to the actual vote, you have to do something with it. And they decided just to send it back to the committee, but nothing's gonna happen there. There's still SB1, which is being carried by Senator Creighton. The Senate's been on holiday break for a little bit already, and they won't be coming back till next Monday. So we'll see if they're able to pass it themselves and send it back over to the House. But I mean, the governor, and Andi, you should chime in here. Right now, it seems to me like the governor's been pushing this really hard. Like back on the campaign, he was pushing it. It was one of his major issues was school choice. He's been saying he'll keep bringing them back. But at a certain point, we have to go have another election if the people are just saying, no, we're not going to do it. You know, if the House of Representatives is saying, you can keep calling us back if you want, but we're not going to pass it, then, you know, you don't have the votes. So it's kind of...
Obviously you and I are very active on Twitter, and friend of the show who's been on the show, Jared Patterson, Representative Patterson did a piece. Apparently a Representative John Rainey out of College Station, a Republican out of College Station, introduced an amendment that basically sought to kill the bill. And Jared Patterson, who's he is, you can find him at Twitter at Jared L. Patterson. He's got a video up where, yes, they were debated on the floor for the first time, and this amendment sought to kill the bill. And I gotta tell you, Representative Patterson asked questions that I hadn't even thought of. And as you know, I mean, you guys all know, everybody listening to this show, unless you're listening for the first time, know that I'm a former teacher, know that I am all about the kids, you know, foster care and adoption. And these were questions like, you know, and Representative Rainey just was like, towards the end of the video, he just was like, he was just done. He was just, he wasn't going to answer the questions. He had no interest. And I'm a little surprised at the rural Republicans, because and I will be honest with this, I do not understand their point of view on this. I know that we had a guest on the show several episodes back now who said, you know, in rural areas where you have only one high school, you know, if kids aren't going to that school, then they're going to get less funding. Well, yeah, but the economy of that is, if you have, let's say you have 400 kids in the high school, let's say it's a small high school, 400 kids in the high school, and 50 of them go to another school, you don't need the money that you needed for 400 kids. And so you only need enough money to educate 350 kids. I don't understand. And if anybody's got any insight into this, because I have been trying to keep up with everything, and this thing I have missed out on. I don't understand why they're not on board with school choice. But Garrett, I wanted to ask you, which bill was it? Was it HB1 that put the money into put more money into more poor areas?
I don't remember.
I don't
I
remember
read
if it
like
was the
four of
Senate.
these. I don't remember if it
Was it the
HB1
House
or if it was.
version?
I don't remember. I don't.
I don't
mean,
remember if
there's
it was
been.
the
I mean, that's the
House.
thing. There's been so many of these different proposals and different bills and different amendments over the past few months and different sessions, and obviously the bill numbering restarts with each one. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it was HB1 or which HB1 it was.
Right. And there was, I don't, so you think it was a House bill though, not a Senate bill, where they put the money into poor areas?
I think it could be a Senate bill. I mean, for the most part, what they've been doing is they've been trying to make it as universal as possible. And then there have been some proposals where they've been like, okay, well, let's just get it started, or it's just for folks that have been like who are zoned to or have been in a underperforming school for the past however many years, and then those people can be eligible for it. But here's the deal: the public education system is broken in a large portion of our state. There are large swaths of our state where public education has broken down. And we need alternatives for students in those areas. There's large portions of the state, geographically speaking at the very least, where public education is working well and the community likes how the education is being provided. I do not necessarily think a one-size-fits-all approach is the best one. But we need to fix the schools in the larger communities because it's serving a lot more students than those smaller communities. And I'm overall for HB1 as it originally sat, or before all the ESAs got stricken. I think I'm for SB1 if it's the bill I think it is. Generally speaking, because I think we need to get this across the finish line, and then we need to start tinkering with it, or we need to tinker with it and then get it across the finish line. But regardless, we're not going to know how this. We're not going to know how these bills are going to go until the rubber hits the road a little bit, and then we're going to have to keep modifying it and making it work.
I think that if you and you really do need to go see Jared Patterson's video on his questions for Representative Rainey on this. You know, there are legitimate reasons that you would not want your child to go to the public school. And I would urge you and all of our listeners to go to Jared Patterson's, it's on his Twitter, it's on YouTube, but I don't have the address for it, but it's on his Twitter, and go listen to his questions. And it's like, God, I never thought about those kinds of situations. Right. So when you hear these situations, and I won't get into them here, because I don't know who's listening when people play our podcast. I don't know who's listening in the background. But when you hear about these situations, and they happen to people, these situations occur in families that can't otherwise afford to go to a non-public school. That's a problem. It's a problem. I would really urge you to take a look at that. But we talked enough about this.
Well, there is a Paxton update. It looks like the whistleblower's lawsuit, the Supreme Court had, I think we mentioned this on the podcast, had opened up the settlement, or had cast aside the settlement as not being fulfilled because the legislature hadn't funded it. So it opened up, so it allowed that the civil lawsuit that the whistleblowers had brought could go on. The Office of the Attorney General had filed that court case originally happened in Travis County. In Burnett County, the Attorney General's office filed, I guess they were trying to venue shop, which is when you try to find a friendly judge. And they filed a motion there and got a 1-week temporary injunction to hold off on that case in Travis County, because they were saying that, though there is a settlement, we've tried to get it done, but we're still waiting on the legislature. And that they venue shopped at the Burnett County, but that judge said no, this settlement's dead because the legislature is not going to take it up, and y'all can proceed to go on. So I'm not really sure what the next step is on that. The rumor is that all that happened because the Office of the Attorney General was trying to avoid subpoenas for deposition. going out to folks. So I still think we're probably a long ways, or not necessarily a long ways, but a lot more. There's probably some more legal hurdles and questions that all need to be answered before that those depositions are taken in that lawsuit for the whistleblowers moves ahead.
It's going to be really interesting to watch what happens. And then the SEC, I think it was SEC, but the other court case, that is it Texas?
It's a state securities.
Yeah,
it's state.
So that Texas has brought against.
Well, yes, but there's the state. The next trial that's on the docket is the state securities charge.
And I believe, so I knew that was supposed to start in February. And I believe I read this week, and, y'all check me. I'm happy to be told when I'm wrong, but I believe they've moved that case now to April, which I find is very interesting because the primary is in March. So.
Well, the case has been out there for like 8 years or something now, so it just keeps getting moved.
Yeah,
all the time. And then there's also Nate Paul. There was another what they call a superseding indictment.
Oh, yeah.
They added more charges. I don't remember what they were because it happened a couple weeks ago. But there are now more federal charges against Nate Paul, who was at the center of the impeachment trial. His relationship with Ken Paxton was at the center of the impeachment trial. So there's always rumor and conjecture about there being possible consequences from that for Paxton, but we've yet to see anything, and federal stuff doesn't usually come out until it does.
Yeah, so 8 felony counts let's see, initial 8 counts. Paul is charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 3 counts of wire fraud, and then the latest one is, so penalties for the new charges range up to 20 years in prison and $50,000 in fines per count. And of course, he pled not guilty to the initial 8. And prosecutors are alleging that Paul lied to lenders to obtain literally $172 million in loans, according to the indictment. So his trial on the initial charges was scheduled for July of next summer, but we don't know if it's 4 new charges will affect that date. So, and thank you KXAN for the quick update there. So yeah, he's got all kinds of problems too.
Yep. So that's kind of the Paxton update. I will say also on Ken Paxton, the chairman of the House Investigating Committee, Andrew Murr, Murstache, has announced that he's not running for re-election.
Oh, I hate to hear that. But, I mean, it's, when you've got Civil War going on, I mean, this ain't my first rodeo with GOP, Civil Wars. It's tough. So I don't blame him for wanting to go and, enjoy his life and, but I hope they get somebody good out of his district.
He has several kids, ages between 15 years and 15 months. One of the lines, I'll read one of the paragraphs from his statement. And he spent 10 years in the legislature, so he's been there a while. He's the grandson of a former Speaker of the House and Governor Coke Stevenson.
Yeah.
As some of you may know, so this is a quote from his announcement press release. As some of you may know, over the course of the past year, I've also had the unenviable responsibility of leading the General Investigating Committee in the Texas House. When our state attorney general asked the taxpayers to pay $3.3 million bill to settle a lawsuit with several of his former employees, I had a duty to follow the evidence and seek the truth wherever it may lead. Our investigation revealed a level of moral compromise that resulted in the attorney general's impeachment. Throughout the ensuing Senate trial, no one, not the attorney general himself, not his high-priced team of trial lawyers, argued his innocence, but that the evidence for impeachment did not rise to the level of removal from office. I, for one, would never accept that low standard. I believe we owe it to ourselves, our institutions of self-government, and the inheritance we leave our children, to hold our elected leaders to a higher standard of conduct, no matter the political consequences. As our investigation concluded and the right course of action became clear, I prepared myself to endure the political attacks, threats of political retribution and physical harm, and intimidation that came with holding a powerful person to account for his conduct. I want to be very clear that the threats had no bearing on my decision to retire from the Texas House, and I had every confidence that I could continue to represent our district with the same level of integrity and accomplishment you deserve and have come to expect. I take my oath of office seriously, as any public servant should, and I'm not willing to compromise my moral and ethical responsibilities for political ease. If I were to do that, I would no longer be worthy of your vote, let alone your trust. By the end of my term, I will spend a decade of my life diligently and thoughtfully representing every person in my district, including those who cannot vote or did not vote for me, and I humbly thank all of you for allowing me to serve.
Well, he'll be missed. He was a good guy.
I mean, Paxton's opponents will take that as a win. Paxton's supporters and DTL will take that as a win. He's not running. Who knows? He might have a political future. And we'll see how that stuff goes. It'll make that race a lot more interesting over the next few months as that comes along.
Yeah, and speaking of races, I saw today actually that there was that the first post-primary general election presidential debate is going to be held in San Marcos at Texas.
Yeah, Texas State.
Yeah, thank you. At Texas State. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, it will be interesting to see if the former president decides to debate. It will be interesting. I have no doubt that the former president will win the primary. We have some very excellent candidates running in the primary who I think would make wonderful presidents. Nikki Haley, I really like Nikki Haley. I'm sorry that Tim Scott dropped out. I thought he was pretty good. And Chris Christie, he's a fighter, man. He's a fighter. You may not, he's from New Jersey, so he's not very Texan, and I get it, but he's a scrappy dude. And so there's some talent out there, and I think it comes down to who do you like. So, but if you don't know anything about Nikki Haley and you're listening to this and go, well, I know her name, pick up her book. It's a fast read, and it was interesting to me how she diplomatically stood up to President Trump and how she did a great job as ambassador to the United Nations. I mean, she really knows her stuff, and pick up her book. It's worth the read.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think any Republican operative, so someone who works to get Republicans elected, in their profession, basically has to, unless they are directly paid by a campaign, we at least have to prepare for Trump being the nominee. For all of our clients, just have to take that into consideration as we're building out campaign plans and everything else. He'll be a definite benefit in some districts, and he'll be a drag in others, in varying states, and this, that, and the other. But every election's different, so it's just the reality of it.
Well, and anything can happen, and usually does.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't think any candidate's looking for any of our endorsements.
But they should be.
So, I mean, I'm preparing as if Trump's going to be the nominee. Yeah. And watching the race to see if anything changes over the next few months. I mean, we don't have to vote for it until early March, so a lot can happen between now and then. I just don't expect it to largely change what's going to happen come the convention when we'll be nominating Trump.
I mean, that's the way it looks. So it was interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody who, well, let's just say is an expert in such things. And I asked the question, I said, should the former president go to jail for any of the things that he's been accused of? Should that happen, what happens with his Secret Service protection? Apparently, it goes away. So, and it's an interesting question because he's entitled to protection, but don't get yourself put in jail. So I just thought little tidbit of trivia there. I thought that was very interesting. Whether or not he actually goes to prison, I don't know. But if he's convicted before next November of anything, and I'm not saying that we're even going to have a result before then, but I don't think it's a good look to have a president who's been convicted in a court of law. But we'll see what happens.
It's also not good to have a president that's committed crimes. So I'd rather there be the court of law for him to say, hey, he didn't actually do it that way.
Yeah.
There's not enough evidence of it.
Yeah.
It's not a good look, but also I don't think it's something where just because it's a bad look doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. But also, I'm not an attorney. I've looked at it. I've seen there's been so much commentary on whether or not he did it. And then there's also like arguments like Ben Shapiro makes where it's like he may have done it, but they've never charged Hillary Clinton or anyone else for these same crimes, and that was something else. So like, who the hell knows?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even understand
absolutely
what's going on in Georgia, but everyone seems to be pleading out, so maybe there's something there. I don't know.
All right, guys, listen, we want to wish you guys a very happy Thanksgiving. Remember, do not put your frozen chicken into the deep fat fryer or you will not have a house. But we hope that you have a marvelous Thanksgiving and, and long weekend and God bless you all because we both Garrett and I count all of you guys as, on our list of blessings because you tune in every week and we hear from you and we value you and thank you very much. So Garrett, take us out.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Seeing Red podcast. It's always Texas politics and beyond. We present the facts and opinions. The Seeing Red podcast with your host, Andi Turner and Garrett Fulce. Thank you and tune in next week. And please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.